The forest awoke with the first rays of the sun. A thin mist spread between the tall pines and birches, hiding beneath it soft moss and fallen leaves. In this forest, on the border between two districts, a large family of red foxes had lived for many years. Their dens were carefully hidden under the roots of old trees, and their hunting trails were worn paths between bushes and fallen trunks. The foxes knew every corner of their territory, where the mice hid, where the quails nested, and where to find fresh berries and mushrooms. This forest was their home, a place where they were born, grew up, and learned to survive. But this year, something had changed. From the southern side of the forest appeared a new predator, a young wolf. He came from a neighboring district where hunting had become too dangerous because of humans and other wolves. His fur was dark gray, and his eyes were wary and alert. The wolf was searching for a new place to hunt and live. At first, the foxes paid him no attention. The wolf was solitary and cautious, avoiding encounters with them. But gradually his tracks began to appear closer to their dens. He started hunting the same mice and hares that formed the basis of the fox's diet. The foxes felt threatened. The oldest fox in the family, an experienced huntress with many scars on her muzzle, watched carefully as changes unfolded in the forest. She understood that if the wolf settled here, they would have to share their prey or even leave their familiar grounds altogether. The wind carried scents, fresh blood of a roe deer from the northern edge, smoke from a fire far down by the road, and the smell of the wolf, sharp, piercing, foreign. Every night, the foxes went out hunting with tense attention. They listened to the rustle of grass, heeded the calls of nocturnal birds, and tried to avoid crossing paths with the wolf. But he grew bolder. His silhouette appeared more often among the trees at dusk. One such evening, a young fox noticed wolf tracks near her den-deep paw prints in soft earth. Her heart beat faster. This was a sign that the fight for territory had begun. The forest lived its own life, birds sang their last songs before nightfall, insects started their evening concert. But beneath this calm, an invisible war was brewing, a war for every meter of forest, for every mouse and hare. And no one knew how it would end. The wolf who came to this forest was not just a random wanderer. His story began far to the north, in harsh lands where winters lasted almost all year and food was scarce. There, among endless snowy expanses and frozen rivers, he was born into a large pack, strong and proud. From early childhood, he had to learn to survive in brutal conditions, fighting for a place in the hierarchy, hunting large game, and avoiding dangers. But one day, everything changed. The pack faced a new threat, humans with firearms. The old wolves died in battles over territory, and the young ones were forced to scatter. The wolf was left alone without family, without a pack, without a home. His fur darkened from dirt and dust after long journeys through unfamiliar lands. His eyes became wary and cold, a reflection of loneliness and constant struggle for life. He knew that to survive, he needed to find a new place, a forest, with enough prey and shelter. And so he came here. The first days in the new forest were full of caution and tension. The wolf studied the area, avoiding old fox trails and those of other predators, listening to the sounds of the night, the rustle of leaves under mice's paws, the calls of owls, and distant howls of other wolves. His body was strong and resilient, muscles taut like strings, paws stepping confidently on soft earth, but hunger gave him no rest. The wolf felt every muscle in his body, every drop of blood. He knew that if he didn't catch prey today, there might be no tomorrow. One night, he spotted an injured hare at the edge of the forest. The prey was weak and easy, but it was a chance to survive. The wolf crept silently, using the shadows of trees and the rustle of leaves under his paws. His breathing was steady and quiet. At that moment, he first sensed the presence of foxes, their sharp eyes watching his every move from the bushes. They were quick and cunning rivals, but the wolf knew he was stronger than them. Despite his loneliness, determination lived within him. He could not afford weakness or fear. Every day was a battle not only for food, but also for the right to call this land his own. The wolf often stopped by the river to drink water and rest. There he looked at his reflection, dark eyes staring back with equal wariness and strength. He understood that if he wanted to stay here for long, he would have to learn not only to hunt better than the foxes, but also to avoid their traps. At times, it seemed to him that the forest lived its own life. The wind whispered ancient stories through the leaves. Night stars twinkled overhead like ancestral eyes. and the earth beneath his paws held memories of those who had lived here before him. Sometimes he remembered his pack, the scents of his mother and brothers, games in the snow beneath northern lights. These memories brought both warmth and pain of loneliness. But now his goal was clear: to survive here, to find his place among these trees and shadows. And so began an invisible game, a hunt on the edge between two predators, each fighting for their right to live. The forest was waking up slowly. Mist, like a light veil, spread between the trees, hiding everything around in a soft haze. The air was cool and damp, filled with the scents of wet earth and pine. Every sound seemed louder than usual: the rustle of leaves, the crack of branches, the quiet breathing of animals. The wolf stood motionless at the edge of the clearing, his eyes sharp and attentive, scanning the surroundings. He sensed that someone else was nearby, not just prey, but a rival. Someone who was also fighting for the right to live in this forest. The fox was close by. She moved quietly and cautiously, like a shadow gliding between the trees. Her red fur shimmered faintly in the dawn light. She knew this forest better. It was her home, her territory. But the wolf was a stranger, strong and persistent. They both understood there would be no peace today. The wolf took a step forward, his paws barely touching the ground. He did not want to scare off the fox prematurely. His heart beat steadily but tensely, every muscle ready to leap. The fox paused for a moment, her ears turning alert toward a sound. Her eyes met the wolf's. In them was a mixture of fear and determination. Time seemed to slow down. The wolf took another step closer to the fox. She stepped back a few paces but did not run away. Her body was tense, ready to defend herself. And suddenly a flash of movement. The fox lunged forward with unexpected speed, trying to catch the wolf off guard. But he was ready, deftly dodged aside and tried to grab her paw. The fight began. Every movement was filled with both power and grace at once. The fox jumped and spun around the wolf, trying to find a weak spot in his defense. The wolf used all his strength, his teeth sparkled in the dawn light, and his claws left scratches on tree bark. The sounds of battle echoed through the forest. The wolf's growl mixed with the piercing screech of the fox. Branches cracked underfoot, leaves rustled as they fell. But this fight was not only physical, it was a struggle of two fates. The wolf felt pain from scratches on his neck and paws, but did not give up. His eyes burned with determination to survive and defend his right to this land. The fox knew that if she lost now, she would lose everything: home, freedom, life. Her breath grew heavier, but she kept fighting until her last breath. Moments stretched into eternity. Finally, the wolf managed to grab the fox by her side with his teeth, but immediately let her go. He saw fear in her eyes and understood. This battle should not end with one of them dead. They both breathed heavily, covered in wounds and scratches. The forest around seemed frozen in anticipation of their next move. Then the wolf stepped back, signaling that today's fight was over. The fox slowly got up and disappeared into the forest mist, alive and free. The wolf remained standing alone among the trees, tired but undefeated. This fight would forever remain in their memory as a moment when two worlds collided: a world of solitude and a world of territory, a world of strength and survival, a world of pain and hope. The forest seemed to hold its breath after that stormy dawn. The mist still slowly spread between trees as if trying to hide traces of the recent battle. The air carried scents of blood and wet earth, reminders that even in this calm life continues to struggle. The wolf stood at the edge of a small clearing. His body was covered with scratches and fresh wounds. Every movement caused pain, but he could not afford to stop. His eyes, usually so sharp and attentive, were now clouded with fatigue and pain. He lowered his head toward the ground, trying to catch scents that might tell him about the fox. He knew she was wounded too. The wolf remembered their fight. Every moment burned into his memory. Not just a struggle for territory or food, but an encounter between two living beings, each fighting for their right to live. He felt respect for the fox. Her courage and persistence touched his heart. Meanwhile, the fox hid in thick bushes nearby. Her red fur was stained with dirt and blood, her breathing ragged from pain and exhaustion. She carefully examined her wounds, deep scratches on her side, and paws reminded her of how fierce their battle had been. But what troubled her most wasn't physical condition, but vulnerability itself. The fox had always been strong and independent, but now she realized even those most cunning can find themselves on death's edge. She listened to forest sounds, rustling leaves, birdsong, trying to find comfort there. Deep down she knew this fight had changed them both. The wolf slowly began circling around the clearing, trying not to scare, prey, or attract other predators' attention. His wounds burned with every move, but he understood weakness could cost him life. He stopped by a small stream for water. The cold liquid refreshed his body and eased some pain. The wolf looked at his reflection in water, a battered face with tired eyes, staring back with equal resolve to survive. Silence fell over the forest, as if nature itself held its breath after two strong wills clashed. Meanwhile, the fox moved slowly through her shelter spots, trying to find safe place for rest. Her thoughts were full of doubts. Should she continue fighting for this territory, or better retreat somewhere safer? But wherever she went, memories of the wolf stayed in her mind. His strength and courage left deep marks on her soul. Several hours passed. The sun rose higher, chasing away mist and lighting up forest with warm rays. The wolf felt renewed strength, pain less sharp, mind clearer. He knew many trials still lay ahead, but now he was ready to face them with new power, not only body strength, but spirits as well. The fox decided to return to her hunting trails, careful and watchful with every step she took. She understood this forest had become home, not only because of food or shelter, but because of encounters that changed destinies. Their fight had been only beginning of a new story, a story about struggle for survival, respect for an opponent, and search for one's place in this vast world. Several days had passed since the wolf and the fox met in their fierce battle. The forest was gradually returning to its usual life. Birds sang again in the treetops, a gentle breeze swayed the grass, and sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting patterns of light and shadow on the ground. But for the wolf and the fox, everything had changed forever. The wolf moved slowly along familiar paths. His wounds had begun to heal, but the memory of their encounter lingered. He often stopped, listening to the sounds of the forest, trying to understand where was his place now. The territory felt foreign, as if the very earth reminded him of the recent fight. Inside him grew a new feeling, not just caution, but respect for the fox. She was a strong and clever rival who had not surrendered even in the face of danger. The wolf understood that their fates were intertwined much deeper than a mere struggle for survival. The fox, meanwhile, had changed as well. She became more attentive and cautious. Her movements gained even greater grace and stealth, but in her eyes appeared a new spark, a spark of hope. She often remembered the wolf, his strength and determination, and although there was competition between them, she felt a strange attraction to this solitary predator. One evening, as the sun was already dipping toward sunset, the wolf stopped by a large stone at the edge of the clearing. He looked toward the horizon where the sky was painted in crimson hues. At that moment, he heard a soft rustle, a familiar sound of light footsteps. The fox appeared from behind the trees, her red fur softly glowing in the last rays of sunlight. Their eyes met without words, without threats. The wolf took a slow step forward and stopped. The fox slightly tilted her head in acknowledgement of her rival's strength. A silence hung between them, filled with mutual respect and understanding. They both knew many trials still lay ahead, but now they were no longer enemies in the full sense, rather rivals sharing a cautious trust. The forest around them lived its own life, whispering stories through wind and birdsong. And in this world, two predators found a new path. A path not only of struggle for survival, but also of seeking balance between strength and trust. The wolf stood atop the hill, his body weary, but his spirit remained strong. The wind gently ruffled his fur, carrying familiar scents of the forest, damp earth, pine needles, and distant flowers. Images of the fox surfaced in his memory, her agility, determination, and that fine line between rivalry and respect that had grown between them. In the distance came a soft rustle, barely audible but distinct. The wolf froze, listening intently. His heart quickened. His breath grew slightly deeper and steadier. He knew that sound, light footsteps on fallen leaves, the faint whisper of grass. It could only be her, the fox. He turned his head toward the sound. His eyes glistened warily in the twilight. The wolf tried to catch a silhouette among the trees, attuned to every movement of the wind and every rustle beneath his feet. It's her, he thought with hope and caution alike. He knew her habits, how she moved quietly and swiftly, how her red fur flickered among the bushes. The wolf waited to see the familiar figure, to hear her breath nearby. The rustling grew closer. The wolf tensed all over every muscle fiber, prepared for the encounter. He sensed a familiar scent, a mix of earth and pine, with a slight hint of something wild and free. But suddenly, from behind the trees emerged a man, a hunter, with a rifle in hand. The wolf froze in place, His heart pounded louder than before. A thought flashed through his mind. It's not her, but it was already too late. A shot shattered the silence, echoing across hills and valleys. The world around stilled for a moment. The wolf fell to the ground, feeling the weight of pain and the realization of an inevitable end. His gaze drifted toward the forest where the fox had been just moments before. There was no fear in his eyes, only calmness and acceptance. At that moment, it seemed as if the entire forest held its breath with him. Even the wind ceased. Birds stopped singing. There was a profound sorrow, not just for a lost life, but for an entire era of struggle and survival fading away. The fox watched from afar. Her red fur blended with the golden light of dawn. She knew this moment was inevitable. A flicker of sadness passed through her eyes, a quiet farewell to one who had been both rival and companion in this wild world. The death of the wolf was not merely an end to one predator's journey, it was a loss of part of the forest's soul. His strength and wisdom left traces in every corner of this place, in the rustle of leaves beneath feet, in shadows cast by trees, and in the cold breath of morning wind. The forest continued its eternal life. Birds began singing their morning songs again. Wind whispered once more through treetops. Grass swayed under gentle breezes. But now this dawn was tinged with sorrow and respect for that being who gave everything for the life of this world. The fox slowly disappeared deeper into the forest, her steps quiet but sure. She carried within her memory of the wolf and lessons from the past, a memory that even the strongest can be vulnerable before fate. The dawn of a new day marked not only an end to one predator's path, but also the beginning of a new chapter for another, a chapter of hope and continuation amidst the shadows of the forest.